All right. I think we will go ahead and get started. If we have any late arrivals, that's totally fine. This will be recorded and I will send it out to everybody. So if you want to, go back and reference anything, you will definitely have the opportunity to do that. So we will get started. So, just want to welcome everybody today. Thank you for taking out some time out of your day to join us. My name's Elisa Hermes, and I am the Director of Rules and Competitions here for the Maryland State Golf Association. So today we are going to go a little in depth with a look at the course, which is known as Rule 2. There's not a lot of actual rule making within this rule. So we're going to also talk about some other affiliated rules and how they will apply to the course. But if you do want any additional resources, I will have a slide at the end with some additional information. Feel free to use the chat feature. I might not get it to you. I might not get the answer immediately, but I will scroll through those every now and then just to see if I can provide any further clarification. So just a couple of goals for today. Hopefully you get something out of it. My hope is that it'll help you at least in your rules journey because you're here. So you obviously want to know a little bit more about the rules, but just an introduction to Rule 2 and its affiliated rules, like I said, to get you all comfortable with kind of determining what area of the course your ball lies in, which is very important, as you'll see here in a little bit. And finally, if anything, you'll at least know the 5 defined areas of the course. So if you can repeat those 5, then I think we've accomplished one of our goals for today. So the purpose of the rule, just jumping right in, Rule 2 is going to introduce the basic things every player should know about the course, right? Like I talked about, the 5 defined areas of the course. And then there are also some different types of defined objects like, outside influences or removable obstructions, what have you, and some conditions like abnormal course conditions, which is another umbrella term. So, we'll kind of keep it a little broad with that, but, and those things that can interfere with play. So why is it important to know, the area of the course where the ball lies, and then the status of any of those interfering objects or conditions? It's because it's going to affect how the player plays the ball or if they are able to take relief. So you might be able to do something in one area and you're not able to do it in another area. So we'll jump more into that and why that's important. So golf itself is obviously played on a course, and there are generally some boundaries that are set by the committee. As I'm sure you know, golf is different than most other sports. We're getting into March. March Madness is heating up. A basketball court is generally going to be the same size. The 3-point line might change, but it's going to fit within that one rectangle, right? Same with a football field. That's the set area of play. Golf is completely different in that different courses look different when you go from one course to another course. They're not going to be the same. So, that is something important to keep in mind. So the course, it's the entire area of play within the edge of any boundaries set by the committee. So here you can see this course, we have the dotted white line. So everything within that boundary is going to be the area of play. So like we said, that part is in bounds and part of the course. Obviously, everything outside of that boundary edge is going to be out of bounds and is not part of the course. So another definition we'll see, and as we go throughout the presentation, anything in italics is going to be a definition, And one thing I would like everybody to keep in mind as you continue on your rules journey, whether you're new, whether you've been doing this for a few years, definitions are a key thing to the rules of golf. Oftentimes you can find the answer within the definition rather than even having to go to the rules. So just make sure that, as you're looking through things, definitely keep in mind looking at the definition. So out of bounds. Out of bounds is all of the area outside the boundary edge, like we've been talking about, of the course as defined by the committee. So the committee could be, if you were playing in a tournament, I could be the committee. If you're playing at your local club, your head professional might be the committee. The superintendent might be part of that because they are defining the boundary edges of the course. So the committee can be comprised of a whole bunch of different folks, but they are the ones that define out of bounds. And like I said, all areas inside that edge are going to be in bounds. So out of bounds, it's the boundary edge of the course, and this goes up above and down below the ground. So one thing you can think of is, say you're playing at a course and there's a tunnel that you're driving through. You might go from inbounds to out of bounds to back in bounds, right? So the boundary edge is going to kind of be like this glass plate, and you don't want to break it. But if you do, you will be out of bounds, right? So what this means is that all the ground and anything else inside the boundary edge is going to be in bounds. So whether it's on, above, or below the surface of the ground. So you can think of it as just continuing from the sky all the way through the ground and below the ground. And typically, we're going to see boundary edges defined by boundary objects, like we see this fence here. Could be lines, could just be stakes, could be a road. There are many different things that will define out of bounds. And it is on the committee to make sure that these are tied up, these are defined, to make sure that the players do know, oh yeah, I'm out of bounds, or oh no, maybe that road is just an immovable obstruction or something like that. So committees should make sure that that is clear, and players should also know, look at a rule sheet or what have you. If you're playing in a competition or if you're just at your club, make sure you know where the actual boundary edge is. So now we're going to get into our defined areas of the course. So we have, like I said, we have 5 areas of the course. This is going to be the teeing area, the putting green, general area, all bunkers, and all penalty areas. So you'll see here, we kind of have 2 these, a general, and then 2 alls. So you can see that there, and you can see in this picture, right, it's not saying this is fairway, this is rough. It's the general area, the putting green, bunkers, things like that. So this diagram here, or this picture, we'll refer back to it when we change each area of the course. But we're going to see that in the teeing area, you're going to be able to do a lot of different things. Like I referenced at the jump, you can do a lot of things in the teeing area that you really can't do anywhere else. So, we're going to start there. We're going to then work our way down to kind of our less favorable areas. And obviously they're the places you really don't want to be when you're out on the golf course. So the teeing area, this is going to be an area the player must play from when starting the hole. So a lot of times and at our different workshops, they've referred to this area as Candyland. You can get away with a lot, like I said, in the teeing area. But also to keep in mind, players can play from different teeing areas, even though they're playing in the same group. So, if you're out there playing with friends and you know, maybe one of them is a really low handicap and they like to play from further back. They might be playing in a different teeing area than the teeing area you're playing from. So just keep that in mind, and we'll see why that's important here in a minute. So the teeing area itself, it's a rectangle, and it's 2 club lengths deep. So even though we don't see it here, club lengths you can see is italicized. So it is a definition, but a club length is going to be the longest player and the longest club in the player's bag for that round, but not including the putter. So maybe the longest club you have is a 3-wood. Well, that's going to be your club lengths and what you're going to use for your 2 club lengths when it comes to the teeing area. So it's going to be defined by the front edge of the tee markers. So this is the line between the forwardmost points. You can see here these little circle tee markers that are set by the committee. So again, the committee they're rather important when it comes to setting up the course. But these are set by the committee. Typically, what we like to do at the MSGA on par 4s and par 5s, so where most people use their driver, we like to at least have a 6 paces wide teeing area. Par 3s, we get a little wider. If we can go 8 paces wide, we'll have that. But then again, you're going to have your 2 club lengths behind that area. And then the side edges are going to be defined by the lines back from the outside points of the tee marker. So it's basically a perfect square. Hopefully we've got you lined up in the correct direction of play. We're not lining you up towards a pond or anything like that. We've got you perfect right in the center of the fairway, and you're able to just, you know, knock it down the middle. So now we're getting into a different rule. Like I talked about, this is another affiliated rule. Rule 6 is about playing a hole. So in 6.1, it's going to tell us the ball must be played from inside the teeing area. So it can truly be anywhere inside that rectangle, but that's where the ball, in order for the ball to get activated and to be in play, you're going to need to play from inside that teeing area. So like I talked about, say your friend's playing from the blue tees, you're playing from the white tees, you accidentally play from the blue tees, then, you know, you're not playing from the correct teeing area. So you're playing a ball from outside the teeing area. What form of play you're playing in will kind of depend on, is there going to be a penalty or is there not? So as we can see here in match play, there's not going to be a penalty, but your opponent can cancel the stroke. So say, you know, say Mr. Palmer here hits it into the ocean and he was in front of those tee markers, then his opponent might be like, that's fine. You can play it from there. Now, say he hits it right down the middle. The opponent can say, hey, now, wait a minute, you were in front of the tee markers. I'm going to cancel your stroke. So it's kind of that whole, you know, when it comes to match play, you're kind of playing differently than when you're playing in stroke play, because you're just playing against that other person. Now in stroke play, because we obviously have to protect the rest of the field, there is going to be the general penalty, which is 2 strokes, and the player must correct that mistake. So this is going to be, and as you keep going through the rules, there are a few scenarios where you have to correct the mistake. Otherwise, you get disqualified. So at least you're getting the 2 strokes. I think that's way better than getting disqualified. So you'll just correct that mistake. Any of the strokes, you know, say you get down to the green and you remember that you played from the wrong teeing area, none of those strokes count. So you'll just go back. You'll have hit that shot. You'll have the 2. So you'll be hitting 4 from the teeing area after you've corrected it. If you don't, so say you get to the putting green, you've holed out, and then you've gone to the next teeing area and you've teed off, then we're gonna have some issues there. So you're going to be disqualified at that point. That's the trigger. But you know, as long as you can get that corrected before you tee off, or if you're on the last hole of your round before you return your scorecard, then we're gonna be okay. All will be okay. So we talked about when the rules apply. Now let's look at what the different actual rules are. So we're going to go through all 6 here, and we will start with the first one. So this diagram is great. I think it really illustrates everything. If you like to live life on the edge, you could be like the one at the very top of the teeing area, or if you really need a lot of space, maybe you're in between clubs, you want to use the very furthest point back of the 2 club links, you could go there. Personally, I'm kind of in the middle of that square, so just to keep things safe. But this is a great diagram of showing you when your ball is inside the teeing area or if it is outside the teeing area. But again, if it's touching any part of that rectangle, then you are totally fine and your ball is in the teeing area. You can stand outside of the teeing area. So the rules don't require you to stand within that rectangle. As you can see here, Matt Fitzpatrick is standing outside. Totally fine, not a big deal. So second part, a ball can be teed or it can be played from the ground. So some folks really like to use tees. We'll see a couple of other examples here in a little bit, but really up to you and your preference. So another definition, a tee, I think we all know what a tee is, but it is an object used to raise a ball above the ground to play it from the teeing area. It does have to conform to equipment rules, so it can't have any, directional things or anything like that. But and then it must be no longer than 4 inches. So everything you see there is totally good to go. The next one, again, it's kind of, we're referring back to the teeing area as Candyland. You can do some things and take some actions in the teeing area to improve what we like to call our conditions affecting the stroke. It's in Rule 8. It's another really kind of deep thing, a deep concept, but there are some things that you can do where in the teeing area that you typically can't do anywhere else. Sorry, just looking at a question here. So we have a question for the tee markers, if they have or if there's a stripe denoting which tee area it is. So the teeing area is going to be defined by the actual tee markers themselves. So hopefully those are there. We'll see what happens when there maybe might not be a tee marker, or one is missing, or everything's missing. But it's the actual physical markers. Those are gonna make up the actual definition of the teeing area. So what can you do to improve the cats, as we call them, in the teeing area? You can alter the surface of the ground. So we can see here, as you all, I'm sure, have seen, Laura Davies loves to take a mound of dirt, I suppose. And I know she hits the ground. Superintendents might not like it, so maybe we don't all do it, but she does that. You can alter the ground and certainly create the indentation to tee up your golf ball. You could move, bend, or break maybe grass, a mushroom, maybe anything that's attached or growing in the ground in the teeing area. So we want to make sure it's actually in the teeing area. You could remove or press down sand and soil. So say somebody has repaired their divot, or they put some divot mix into a divot, but it's kind of in a spot you actually like. You could remove or press down in the teeing area. We can't do this anywhere else except on the putting green, but in the teeing area, we are okay to do that. You could remove dew, frost, or water like this gentleman is doing. So these are just some things that you can do that, like I said, typically you cannot do. But if you do something else, like say you break a branch and that tree is not growing within the teeing area, I mean, very rarely you're ever going to see a tree growing in the teeing area. So if you break a branch, improve your line of play, or if you move a tee marker, you will get the general penalty. So in stroke play, it'll be 2 strokes, and match play will be loss of hole for improving these conditions. So like I briefly mentioned, there are going to be some restrictions on moving tee markers. So we'll see here what might happen in that case, or if a tee marker goes missing. You come up on a teeing area or on the tee box and the tee marker's not there. So like I said, the location of the tee markers is set by the committee, and they will define each teeing area. And they should remain that way for all players who will play from that teeing area. So we say should because it will protect a player who maybe didn't move the tee marker, but plays from the correct area. I know that happened with us. A tee marker got moved and the players, still played from that same area after that tee marker was moved. If the player improves the conditions affecting the stroke by moving said tee marker, like we see there, before they make a stroke from the teeing area, they're going to get the general penalty. So we just don't want players to just go around moving tee markers just because they think, I don't like the way that looks. I don't like why that's there. It's not a good reason to move the tee marker. Or if, like I said, if a player finds one or both tee markers missing, they should at least try to find a committee member. But if they can't, then we'll just use their reasonable judgment. And most times you're going to know where you need to tee off from. In all other situations, so if it's not your teeing area, or if you're playing another hole and a tee marker might be in your way, they're just going to be treated as regular movable obstructions. You can remove it, but then also make sure you're going to want to put that back. So like I talked about, we haven't put our ball into play until a stroke is actually made. So, whether the ball is teed or on the ground, or when starting the hole or playing again, say you have to use stroke and distance from the, because you had a lost ball or something like that. The ball hasn't been played until the player makes a stroke at it. So we'll see here in the next couple of slides some examples of what are not constituted as a stroke. But this is a big change that was made in 2019. And it was made to kind of help beginner golfers and really didn't impact more experienced golfers. So if you want to change where you've teed your ball up, you just noticed, hey, I don't like where I did that. If you haven't made a stroke at it, by all means, go ahead and kind of re-tee and lift and move the ball. But if the ball falls off the tee before the player's made a stroke at it, or if it's knocked off the tee, you can just re-tee it anywhere within the teeing area without penalty. So again, there's really no impact. A big rules myth is that it counts as a stroke if you just knocked it off the tee. It's not true, and it never has been true. So I know there's a compilation of videos of Zach Johnson infamously doing it at several events. I think he did it at the Players, at the Masters. So I'm sure you could type that into YouTube and find a few of those videos. But if the player has made a stroke at the ball while it's falling or after it's fallen off, there's no penalty. So, for some reason it starts to fall off, you make your stroke. The stroke counts, the ball's in play. But if it's still within the teeing area, you could just re-tee that. You could play it as it lies. You could do what you want with it. But if you do make a stroke at a ball, it's going to count, but there's not going to be a penalty involved. So like I said, if a player's ball is in the teeing area after a stroke, and this is really, really rare, but it can happen. The player can lift or move the ball without penalty. And you can play that ball or another ball. So say you're like, no, that ball has some bad vibes. I'm gonna actually change that out. You can do that, and you can change that golf ball out. So teeing area, the Candyland of Candyland. The putting green here, we're going to see a few different things. There are a few more restrictions, but not, it's obviously a little more favorable, and you can get away with a few more things on the putting green.
The rules allow many special permissions on the putting green that you don't get anywhere else on the course. And while you can't repair aeration holes, natural surface imperfections, or any normal wear on the green, there is plenty you can do. Marking, lifting, and cleaning your ball is always permitted. It's okay to repair most damage, such as ball marks, spike marks, hole plugs, and anything caused by shoes and animals. Sand and loose soil can be removed even when it's on your line of play. All those fixes must be done promptly and must not improve your line of play beyond the repair. Finally, you or your caddy are allowed to touch the green when pointing where you expect to putt.
Perfect. So those are some really great examples, real life examples of things you can do on the putting green. So like we said, it's an area on the hole the player is playing. So again, on an area on the hole the player is playing. It's specially prepared for putting, or if the committee has defined it as a putting green. So maybe we're in the winter time, there might be a temporary green. So the committee has defined it as such. Again, it's one of the 5 defined areas of the course, and putting greens for all other holes. So the other 17 ones, or maybe there's a couple of practice putting greens, those are going to be wrong greens, and those are treated as part of the general area. So like we saw, without penalty, you can repair damage to the putting green caused by people. So we might have a ball mark that's caused by a person. Animals, so maybe some hoof prints. If it's early in the morning and the deer have crossed that putting green, you can repair that. Artificial objects, so maybe the flag stick, you kind of flung it down, and there was some damage there. You are able to repair that. And natural objects, maybe an acorn embedded in the green, you can take that out and repair that. But natural imperfections on the putting green cannot be repaired. So we can see there's maybe some just winter damage, and maybe the grass hasn't grown back yet. Or like they said in the video, aeration holes definitely cannot repair those. So most things you can, but there are some things you can't. And again, we just want to keep pace moving. That's always important. I like to say fix one ball mark and fix one other. But again, we just want to make sure we're doing things promptly. So accidental movement. So things that we just accidentally do. There's going to be no penalty here for accidentally moving your ball or ball marker on the putting green. I know this does say 2019, but this was a change in 2019 that has continued on to 2023.
Under the 2019 rules, if you accidentally move your ball or ball marker on the putting green, there is no penalty. For example, if you accidentally move your ball in making a practice swing or in preparing for your stroke, drop your ball marker on your ball and move it. Move your ball with your foot. Or cause your ball marker to move. There is no penalty, and you simply replace your ball or ball marker on its original spot.
Awesome. So you kind of get away with being a little careless, I think. In my opinion, you get away with that. But again, if it's accidentally, then the rules think it's okay. So on the putting green, a ball moved by natural forces So natural forces, maybe wind or water, they're going to cause the player's ball at rest to move. There's going to be no penalty, and then the ball must be played from its new spot. There is an exception, which we will see here in a minute, but I like to think of this as natural forces, starts with an N. You're going to play it from its new spot. So new starts with an N. So that's kind of a way you can remember that in a pinch. All good rules have exceptions, right? So if the player's ball on the putting green moves after the player has already lifted and replaced the ball. So if they've marked it, lifted it, and replaced it, the ball will need to be replaced on its original spot because it owns that spot. So it paid rent, it paid the mortgage on that spot, and you'll just replace the ball there. And again, this is going to be true no matter what caused the ball to move.
Do you want it in or out? Hey, you can leave it in.
The flag stick is primarily used to show the location of the hole. Before playing any shot, you have the choice to leave the flag stick in the hole or play your stroke without it. But remember, keeping it in may help improve the pace of play. Always playing with the flag stick in the hole is okay, and if your ball happens to hit it from anywhere on the course, there's no penalty, even while putting on the green. However, before putting, you can decide to ask someone to either remove the flag stick or pull it as your ball gets close to the hole.
Perfect. So I see a question here in the chat. So if the green around it looks like if the green around the hole is kind of pulled up or rough, can you tap it down? So I think the question might be getting at if it's like natural wear, or if it's caused by a person. So say they try to pull the flag stick out and the cup kind of gets stuck with it. You could tap all of that down, but if it's just natural wear, like say, I know some grasses, and forgive me, I'm not a grass expert, but some grasses do grow and you can see the grain kind of growing over the cup. That's just natural. So we're not going to want to fix that. But if it's, an indentation in the cup, things like that, you can fix that. But if it's just later in the day and the grass is kind of grown funky, you're going to want to take care not to fix that. All right. All right, so we're kind of in the middle now, right? The general area we're going to get to next, and that's where players generally play from. General area generally play from. We will see that there are some penalties for accidental movement. And like always, the rules like to give us some exceptions. So we'll jump right into that. So another definition, a general area, this is the area of the course that covers all of the course, except for the teeing area, the player must play from and starting the hole that they're playing, all penalty areas, all bunkers, and the putting green of the hole being played. So we can see here, it's pretty much everywhere else except for those other four areas. So the general area is going to include all teeing locations on the course, except for the one that you're except for your teeing area, and all wrong greens. So like I talked about, while these are defined areas of the course, they are not for that hole being played. So rule 9, it's another meaty rule. So we're gonna, we're going to semi-dive into it. We'll wade through this, but this is going to be what happens when a ball is lifted or moved by a player, and when it has to be replaced. And then we'll see some exceptions when you're actually allowed to, and some what happens when things are accidentally done. So a ball, if it's lifted or moved by a player, this is going to apply when it's known or virtually certain. So it's this concept of 95% or more sure that a player has lifted their ball at rest or the player or their caddy's actions have caused it to move. So when it must be replaced, if the player lifts their ball at rest or causes it to move, it must be replaced on its original spot. So you can see here, this player on the bottom kind of just kicks their ball. We know it's known or virtually certain that they did move their ball or cause their ball to move. So they're going to need to replace it there on the original spot. Here's our lovely exceptions. We have 2 of them. When a player lifts their ball under a rule, so maybe they want to identify their ball, they will, need to mark it, identify it, and then put it back. Or sorry, that's when you replace it. But if you're taking relief, so you can see they're taking penalty area relief, they don't have to replace it at that point, or if they're replacing their ball on a different spot. Those are going to be a couple of exceptions. And then when the ball moves only after the player has begun the stroke or a backswing for a stroke. So, if it moved, you're not going to replace the ball. You're just going to kind of continue with your stroke there. They go on, you're not going to replace it at that point. So we're going to see some penalty situations here. So if the player lifts or deliberately touches their ball at rest or causes it to move, the player is going to get 1 penalty stroke. So this was a reduction of penalties that we saw. So it's a change. It's not as harsh, but it is going to be just a 1 penalty stroke situation. And the player will get it then. And again, we're going to talk about our exceptions here. So we'll start with exception 1. So the player can and is allowed to lift or move the ball, and there's no penalty when they do so under a rule that allows the ball to be lifted and then replaced in its original spot. Requires a moved ball to be replaced on its original spot. So we can see here the iguana. We're going to want to replace it then. Players allowed to lift and move the ball back. Or if the rule requires a player to drop or place a ball again, or to play the ball from a different place. So say you have incorrectly dropped, you're required to redrop, so you can lift and move the ball. These are kind of like common sense things, but the rules do want to call it out so that that's where the exceptions come from. All right, exception 2. So accidental movement in trying to find or identify the ball. So if we're in the woods here, like Phil is, and we're searching for our ball, we don't know where it is, and we accidentally move the ball, there's not going to be a penalty there because we've accidentally caused it to move while we're trying to find the ball. Exception 3, if there's, like we saw in that video, if there's accidental movement on the putting green, there's not going to be a penalty, no matter how that happens. If the player causes the ball to move on the putting green accidentally, again, that's the key, right? Accidentally. If you're deliberately doing things, then we're going to run into some issues, but if it's an accident, no big deal. Exception 4. So again, accidental movement anywhere except on the putting green while applying a rule. There's not going to be a penalty when the player accidentally causes the ball to move anywhere except on the putting green while taking reasonable actions. So again, reasonable actions, if you're trying to maybe mark the spot of the ball, like I talked about, if you're trying to identify your ball, you don't know that that's your ball. If you're marking the spot, lifting and then replacing it, you're applying a rule, right? You're using a rule, so you're not gonna get a penalty stroke for that. If you're removing a movable obstruction, say your ball is next to a rake, and it moves, you've got to put it back, so you're not gonna get a penalty there. And then you'll see the other three: restore worsened conditions when allowed to do so, take relief, or measure under a rule. So if you're in a bunker, and you're having to measure because you're trying to take free relief from an abnormal course condition, that's okay if your ball accidentally moves. Not a big deal. Exception 5, this is it's kind of a rare one. I don't know that we see it that much. But if the ball moves after coming to rest against the player or equipment, there's not going to be a penalty. So say they drop the ball and it comes to rest against your foot within the relief area, that's okay if you move your foot and it causes the ball to move. So we can see there it hits the player. That's okay. You're not going to get a penalty for that. And some of our rules, the penalty statement is going to direct you to another one. So it's like we like to say, it's the rules playing traffic cop. So you're if you play from a wrong place, so say you were supposed to replace your ball, but you didn't do that, then you're playing from a wrong place in breach of 9.4, but the penalty is going to come under 14.7. I wouldn't get too caught up in this, but that's just what the penalty statement says. And you're more than welcome to go and reference these rules. I don't think we need to get too much into that today, but that's just kind of pointing you to the different penalty statements. And so this is one, it's what we like to call golf math. If a player is required to replace a moved ball, but they don't do so and they play from a wrong place, right? They're going to be on the hook for 1, and then they're going to get the say we're in stroke play and they get the general penalty for 2. They're actually just going to get 2 strokes. So they're not going to get 3, they're going to get 2. But again, it's golf math. It's a little more in the weeds than I'd like to get today, but we do have that statement there that to keep in mind. All right, so now we're going into some less favorable, probably as a golfer, and also less favorable scenarios that you're going to see. So we will go into bunkers.
Time at the beach can be enjoyable, but on the golf course, most players prefer to avoid the sand. Bunkers are prepared areas of sand with a few special restrictions that serve to maintain the challenge of playing from them. When you find your ball in a bunker, you're not allowed to deliberately touch the sand to test its condition. Also, be careful not to touch the sand behind or in front of your ball, or during a practice swing, even if by accident. The good news is you can move loose impediments and movable obstructions, and even touch the sand with your club elsewhere in the bunker, as long as you're not testing its condition.
Very good. So bunkers. So here's a definition. Bunkers are a specially prepared area of sand, which is often hollow, from which turf or soil was removed. That is, I'm gonna actually go back. This is an actual bunker. At least they tell me it's real, in New Zealand. So I don't know. I wouldn't want to go play out of that bunker. But bunkers are, again, one of the 5 defined areas of the course. And here's another part where the committee comes in key. A committee can define a prepared area of sand as part of the general area. So that means it's not a bunker. So again, those restrictions on, touching the ground or the sand and things like that might not apply, but that's only if the committee has defined it as such. So again, goes back to wanting to know your local rules. Excuse me, if there's like a notice or something like that, you'll just want to make sure that you are aware of that, what is and what might not be a bunker. And the inverse may be true. They may define a non-prepared area of sand as a bunker. So again, if you are a committee member, make sure that you are making that very clear to your players so that there is no controversy or no confusion. I'm sure you all remember Dustin Johnson a few years ago. he got into a little trouble there with kind of not knowing what was what. So just make sure your players do know. And when a bunker is being repaired, like we see here in this picture, maybe it's the winter time or the fall, or just the bunker needs to be repaired. And the committee defines the entire bunker as ground under repair. It's going to be treated as part of the general area. So again, this means it's not a bunker. So that means that some of those restrictions are not going to apply. If it's mandatory ground under repair, then again, it's probably going to be a no play zone. You're not going to be able to play out of it. So things that are not part of a bunker, we're going to have 4 different things. The lip, wall, or face at the edge of the prepared area. So we can see here, there is the soil or maybe the bunker lip. That's not part of the bunker. And one place that would come in handy, I don't know if you all remember, it's pretty specific, but it was a couple of years ago at the PGA. Tiger had an embedded ball in the lip of the bunker. So he was able to take his relief, because normally if you're in the bunker, you're not going to get embedded ball relief. You'd have to take an unplayable. So he was actually able to get relief. So that's why it is important to know whether your ball is in the bunker or is not in the bunker. So if we have any soil inside the edge of the prepared area, or any growing or attached natural object, maybe grass, bushes, or trees, those are not going to be part of the bunker. So we can see here, there's kind of like a piece of just soil, or just a natural thing. That's not in the bunker. If sand is spilled over outside the edge of the prepared area, so maybe they were doing some maintenance, the machinery kind of brought that sand out, that is not part of the bunker. And then all areas of sand on the course that are not inside the edge of a prepared area. So I think a lot of times you'll see this when you maybe go down to the Carolinas. They're just some sandy areas. They're just sandy natural areas. Those are not going to be in the bunker. And you'll just play them as they're in the general area. So those are again not bunkers. Sometimes they're waste areas, often referred to. That's one thing that they're referred to. So Rule 12 is going to talk to us about bunkers, and kind of let us know when a ball is in a bunker. There's not a ton of rule making within Rule 12, but it is going to give us some good guidance. So a ball is in a bunker when it touches the sand on the ground inside the edge of the bunker, or is inside the edge of the bunker and rests on ground where sand normally would be. Say you got a really washed out area, or it's just a really bare bunker. Maybe it's been really windy and the sand gets blown out. And sand is supposed to be there, then the ball is in the bunker. Or if it's maybe on a movable obstruction like a rake, it's going to be in the bunker. But again, as you can see in this picture, if it's on that little island of grass, it's not going to be in the bunker. So again, you can do things like take a practice swing if you're on that grass area and kind of touch, and you can touch the ground. That's okay. But again, if the ball's in the bunker, you're going to want to be careful not to do that. So if it lies on soil or grass or anything else growing, like maybe this bush, and is inside the edge of the bunker, but not touching any sand, it is not in the bunker. So again, this video is going to touch on some restrictions like we saw in the initial video about bunkers, and also loose impediments, which was a change a few years ago, and I think was a change for the better.
Under the 2019 rules, there is no penalty for moving loose impediments when your ball is in a bunker. However, some bunker restrictions continue to exist. For example, you are still not allowed to touch the sand with your club, behind or in front of your ball, when making a practice swing, or when making your backswing.
Perfect. So again, we're gonna want to make sure we're not digging or touching the sand at all when we are in our backswing, and same with practice swings. So another good question. So if the ball is embedded, I think it's in reference kind of to that brief example about Tiger. So you would, if your ball's embedded in the lip, right, and it's not in the bunker, you would take your relief in the general area. So you get pretty much like a half circle, we call it like a half moon. You're gonna go no closer to the hole and you're gonna get a club length. So the pizza pie slice really just depends on the shape of the bunker. But you will get relief within the general area, and it will likely put you into the grass. It's a little more visual, so it's kind of hard to explain exactly, but if you look in the embedded ball in the rules, there's a good diagram. But you will get the club length typically bringing you into the grass. So that is where you will get your relief, your free relief, actually. So I know we will be talking about relief scenarios in a different virtual session, but just wanted to briefly touch on relief from abnormal course conditions within the bunker. So say there's some temporary water, and your ball is in the bunker, you're going to get your nearest point of complete relief in the bunker. So you'll see there's the relief area, kind of similar to what I was talking about with embedded ball, but I don't want to get everybody confused. So you're going to take the original spot of the ball, you're going to get the nearest point of complete relief, and you're going to get a club length, keeping it in the bunker. You're going to want to make sure you're not going nearer the hole than that reference point. And you're going to want to take complete relief if possible. A lot of times with, especially when it comes to temporary water, you might not be able to get your complete relief. So maximum relief by keeping your golf ball in the bunker might be the only possible thing. And it would be the most shallow point of that temporary water. And again, this is free relief within the bunker. You can, however, if you are taking relief from an abnormal course condition, you could take it out of the bunker using back on the line relief. You are going to be on the hook for a penalty though. So you'll see that there in the diagram, but you take it back on the line. So you'll keep the point where your ball originally was, the flag stick, and then you can take it back as far as you want on any part of the course. And you do have to drop it on the line. So when we're talking about back on the line relief, it's very important that you drop it on the line and not on the side. That was a change, and I'm sure you all saw that. Rory got penalized for it at one of the first tour events of the season. But you have to drop it on the line. You don't get your initial club length to start. But once you drop it and it first touches the line, then it could roll up to anywhere within the circular club length. But again, if you're taking out of the bunker for abnormal course conditions, so usually it's going to be temporary water. If you take it outside the bunker, you're going to be paying one additional stroke for that. If you keep it in the bunker, great, you get free relief. You're not going to be paying anything for it. All right, so our final and probably least favorable area is going to be penalty areas. And again, hopefully you'll be able to join us for our next virtual rules seminar when we talk about penalty and free relief, and that's going to be on April 2nd. So we'll really dive into relief scenarios in that case, but for now we're just touching on penalty areas and what they are.
Penalty areas include any body of water on the golf course plus any other area marked by red or yellow stakes or lines. If you happen to find your ball in a penalty area, you can always play it as it lies. Before playing a stroke, it's okay to ground your club, take practice swings that touch the ground, and move loose impediments. If you choose to take relief, the color of the stakes will indicate how many options are available, but all come with one penalty stroke. The first option is stroke and distance, which means you can go back to the spot where you last played. The second is to imagine a straight line from the hole through the point where your ball last crossed the edge of the penalty area and drop on that line behind it. Your ball can roll up to one club length in any direction from where it first struck the course, including forward. You have a third relief option available only if your ball winds up in a red penalty area, which allows you to drop within 2 club lengths of where your ball last crossed into that penalty area, no closer to the hole. There may also be an area marked as a dropping zone that could be available as an additional option.
Perfect. So I think we all know what penalty areas are. Again, not my most favorite part of the course.
Penalty area.
Sorry. So penalty areas, again, are going to be an area from which relief with a 1-stroke penalty is allowed if the player's ball comes to rest there. Typically, they're going to be lakes, ponds, rivers, or ditches. Sometimes they may be just tall fescue areas or maybe heavily wooded areas. A lot of times, courses like to just make a wooded area a red penalty area because it's going to keep play moving. And you're not going to have to, it's not so it's not so penal with having to play a lost ball. So just make sure you're aware of how things stand. So again, yellow penalty areas, you're going to get 2 relief options. Red, you're going to get those same 2 plus the 2 club lengths. And if a penalty area has not been marked or indicated, it is just treated as a red penalty area. So fun fact there. So when is the ball in the penalty area? So it's going to be in the penalty area when any part of the ball lies in or touches the ground or anything else inside the penalty area. Or if it's above the edge of any other part of the penalty area. So if it's on the line, it's in. If it's in a tree that's overhanging the penalty area, and it's in that branch and that line goes up and, oh, yep, you see that the ball's in the penalty area, it's in the penalty area. So that's what we mean if it's above the edge. So what happens when our ball is in the penalty area? You can play it as it lies, no penalty, no problem. Say maybe it's on a really nice piece of grass there, but it's still within that line. Not a problem. Like you saw that player in the video, you could take practice swings and you're good to go. Or you can play the ball from outside by taking your penalty relief. So what happens, and this is very common, if the player thinks their ball went into a penalty area but isn't found? Again, there's this concept of known or virtually certain, so 95% more sure that the ball came to rest in the penalty area. You can just take your penalty area relief. And once you've done that and you've put the ball into play and say the original ball is found in that penalty area, too bad. You're kind of stuck with putting the ball into play, and you're stuck with that one and you're going to have that penalty stroke. If you're not sure, so you think, actually, maybe it's not in there, then you'll just have to proceed under stroke and distance and the ball will be lost. So we can see here, we always can take stroke and distance. You'll play from where the previous stroke was made. You can take back on the line relief for a yellow penalty or red penalty area. And again, you'll want to just drop on that line, keeping the point where the ball last crossed and the flag on a straight line back, and you'll just drop it on that point. And then of course it can roll up to around a club length or within that club length circle. In our red penalty areas, we can use the lateral relief option. So you'll take the estimated point where the ball last crossed and you can get your 2 club lengths from there, making sure you're going no closer to the hole than that point. You unfortunately are not going to get relief under any other rules. So if your ball is embedded in a penalty area or if there's interference, like we see this stone wall, which would be an abnormal course condition, unfortunately, you're not going to get relief, but you can always take your penalty relief accordingly. All right, so we're getting close to wrapping up. I know we're right at 6 o'clock, so we'll wrap up here. But why is it important, to determine the area of the course where the ball lies? Well, it's because it's going to affect the rules that apply in playing the ball or taking relief. So the ball is always treated as lying in only one area of the course. So here we see the ball's on the line. It can't live two lives. It has to choose it. You have to have one or the other. So it's going to be in the penalty area. And the default is going to be if it's touching the general area and one of the other 4 specific areas of the course, it's going to be in that specific area. So of the tiered system, the general area is always going to be on the bottom, right? But if it is in 2 specific areas of the course, so like we see here in the picture, in the penalty area or in the bunker, there's a specific order that we have to follow. So it's first going to be in the penalty area, then the bunker, then the putting green. So here, what can we not do in a bunker, right? We can't take practice swings. But if it's on this line here, we can't take practice swings and touch the sand. But it's on the line, so it's going to be in the penalty area. So you could take a practice swing and touch the sand and you wouldn't be on the hook for a penalty there. Whereas if it were, say, touching general area and the bunker, then yeah, you're not going to be able to take those practice swings. So that's why it's really important to kind of understand where the ball lies and apply the rules accordingly. So, you can kind of, I don't know if it's a loophole, but you'll get around it that way. So just to summarize, and again, thank you for sticking with us for this hour, but again, it's really important to know what area of the course you're in as it can affect how you're allowed to play your ball. The teeing area is going to be the most favorable when it comes to actions a player can take, while penalty areas are going to be the least favorable. And again, most play will take place in the general area, but we'll see whenever we talk about our relief scenarios, there's a ton of things that can come up within the general area, which it keeps us busy as officials out on the course. So here's a few resources. Again, kind of trying to model or to be with sustainability and things like that. We recommend just downloading the Rules of Golf app. It is a little blurry, but it's a little red square. It's if you search in your app store, USGA Rules of Golf, you'll download that. And then there's some 3 little dots and you'll want to go to the settings and put it into expert mode. And it has a great search features. Back when I grew up playing golf, I had to actually carry a rule book with me. Here, I just have my phone with me and I'm able to look things up really quick. There's always practice questions at the usga.org/rules quizzes or generalarea.org. And there is just a ton of information at usga.org/rules. So I would just encourage you to check that out. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, or you can call us at the office. We're typically here 9 to 4. Happy to answer any questions or walk you through anything. But hopefully you learned a few things. You at least know what the 5 areas of the course are. And hopefully you can join us on April 2nd for our relief scenarios. And again, I will send out the recorded version of this presentation. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you out on the course sometime.